Ryan is not a superstitious man. He's a pragmatic one, a data analyst who believes in numbers, logic, and schedules. If a train is late, there's a mechanical reason. If a light flickers, the bulb is old. This mindset is his armor against the creeping anxiety of a city that feels too big and too fast. He prefers the quiet hours, when the frantic pulse of London slows to a steady hum. That's why he finds himself at Tottenham Court Road Station at exactly 11:58 p.m. on a Tuesday. The air is heavy, tasting of stale copper and ancient dust. He can hear the distant hollow echo of a busker playing a mournful tune, the notes bouncing off the tiled walls. The station is nearly a tomb. He steps into the carriage of the Central Line's final westbound service. The doors hum a soft, predatory sound and seal shut, cutting off the last vestiges of the world outside. The train is a sanctuary of sterile, fluorescent light against the encroaching dark. This is the ritual. At this hour, the only other souls in the carriage are the tired, the lost, or the desperate. Near the back, 4 figures are scattered. Ryan doesn't look too closely. Doing so is an unwritten rule of London transport. You preserve each other's privacy because it's the only privacy left. He finds a seat in the middle, safe in his bubble. He opens a battered paper schedule, a quirk. He likes to track the system's performance manually and begins to cross-reference with his watch. He has a routine: log the times, note the delays, then plug his headphones in and vanish. He reaches for his phone and his radio. In this deep vein of the earth, digital signals are a fragile commodity. He needs to check his email before his world completely disconnects. But his phone is a dead slab, 0%. A spark of irrational frustration ignites. He knows he charged it. He's certain, no matter. His radio, an old-fashioned FM receiver, is his backup. He taps it, static, just a harsh, rushing void. A brief, inexplicable feeling of being untethered washes over him. No connection to the world above. The train, after its usual agonizing pause, lurches. It finds its cadence a rhythmic clack, 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 clack. That becomes a mechanical heartbeat. Ryan stares into his schedule. Tottenham Court Road, cross it off. The next should be Oxford Circus. He counts the beats. He knows the travel time like a favorite song. Minutes pass. The clack-clack doesn't stop. The familiar grind of brakes doesn't come. The train is moving too fast. It feels less like it's navigating tracks and more like it's being pulled. An unseen force dragging it forward with relentless, almost angry energy. He glances up. They should have arrived by now. Oxford Circus is a major node. You don't just miss it. His gaze goes to the map above the door. No blinking light indicating the next stop. Just a dark panel. A flicker catches his eye in the window reflection. The 4 people in the rear are wrong. They aren't just tired, but they are looking at something. They are looking for him. Slowly, as one cohesive, terrifying unit, all 4 heads begin to turn. The movement is slow, like their necks are rusted machinery, grinding and cracking. Their eyes, visible in the dark window reflection, are twin voids. The lights above them flicker, a jagged, electrical spasm that plunges the cabin into momentary darkness. When they stabilize, the 4 are closer. They are now facing him directly, their expressionless faces like painted masks. Ryan can feel his own heart now, a trapped bird in his chest. His brain is trying to categorize this, to find the logical explanation. A prank? A film shoot? But the raw physical terror in his gut tells him a different story. These aren't people. They are a wrongness wearing human clothes. They don't breathe. Their chests are flat and still. He grips the edge of his seat, his knuckles white. The train is plunging down a grade now, accelerating. The window becoming a canvas of absolute suffocating night. There are no signs, no tunnel lights, just an abyss that seems to be eating the light from the cabin. This isn't the central line, this isn't any line. He needs to find the conductor. He needs to pull the emergency lever. But an unseen weight anchors him. The rules have changed. The logical world is gone. He remembers the radio. He fumbles with it, hands shaking, twisting the dial. Static, static, still just that endless violent static. Then, through the noise, a sound. It's not human, not music. It's a series of wet, clicking, popping sounds, like large insectile legs moving over cold metal. And under that, a whisper. Not a whisper from outside, but a whisper from within his own mind. The final departure is for you. He doesn't move. He knows that to move is to draw their gaze closer, to draw their all closer. The light flickers again, long, jagged, and precise like a dying star's last signal. When the illumination returns, the four are standing. They are spread out across the aisle, blocking any escape to the next carriage. They are not walking. They are simply closer, their feet gliding over the linoleum, a terrifying lack of friction. The distance has closed from 50 feet to 20. They are still motionless from the waist up, their voids for eyes fixed on him with predatory focus. Ryan can smell them now, a dry, alkaline scent like old paper and copper, a scent that speaks of things that have been in the dark for a very, very long time. He can't use logic anymore. There is no formula for this. There is only a single ancient urge, survival. The clack-clack of the train is no longer a rhythm, it's a command, a countdown. The whispers in his head are growing louder, a chorus of clicks and wet sounds and a repeating, monstrous thought. We have waited for the time you wasted, for the focus you let go. The moment is here. The train's pace becomes a blurred rush. They are moving so fast that Ryan is pressed back into his seat. The window is an inky void, and now a new sound joins the clicking and the whisper. Behind him, a door, but a door to nowhere. A sound of hinges creaking, of rusty metal grinding, a sound that doesn't exist on a modern train. And a breath. Not a human breath, but a dry, cold blast of air that has not known the sun. The conductor, their figure impossibly tall, swathed in an ancient, tattered uniform that seems to be made of dust and dried blood, steps forward from the shadow at the back of the train car. It doesn't look like a person. Its uniform drapes over an architecture of dry bones and clicking mechanisms. A hat, old and faded, is perched on its head. There are no eyes, just a hollow socket filled with more absolute darkness. And its face, it's not a face, it's a grid, a system of small clicking, numbered dials and tiny, flickering lights that show a map of a system that is not London. The numbers are not counting time, but something else. Something older, a debt. The conductor raises a hand. It is not a hand. It is a cluster of rusty tools and keys, clicking together in a metallic song. It points at Ryan. The whispers explode in his head into a single, devastating sentence. Your ticket is the time you did not value. The figure's face, the intricate grid of clocks and lights, resolves into one final, terrifying number, his own life expectancy ticking down. No. Ryan feels the anchors lift. The terror makes his muscles scream. He throws the schedule. He scrambles over seats. He doesn't go forward towards the four nightmares. He runs back towards the conductor, towards the abyss that created this train. It's counterintuitive. It's madness. But he knows in a core of his brain that has abandoned logic that going forward is a certain end. At least going back is a choice to run towards the center of the wrongness. The conductor lowers its metallic hand. The clicking stops. The grid on its face darkens. A hollow, multi-layered voice, 1,000 clicking parts working together, emanates from the structure. You have made the optimal choice. He doesn't fight. He doesn't struggle. He steps into the conductor's shadow, into the air that has never seen the sun. He is pulled. He is consumed. The 5 figures in the train car, the 4 voids and the conductor, all turn as one. They glide forward. The lights of the train carriage become brighter, more intense, blinding. Then in an instant they are gone. The train, a phantom, has crossed a boundary. The carriage is empty. The central line is silent, its last, impossible commuter, having paid his final unseen fare. Above ground, the city moves on. The data analyst's logic a memory, replaced by the terrifying truth that some calculations are not in our hands, and that the schedules we make are only a veil over a darker ancient path. And if you are ever, by some chance, on that last train, and you feel the signal on your phone vanish, and your radio is just static, and you see the reflection in the window, well, you will know that the optimal choice has already been made, and that you are already the last commuter. The platform hums with a heavy, wet cold as the midnight express to Edinburgh glides out of the station. Julian leans his head against the cold glass of his private compartment, watching the city lights stretch into long, orange ribbons before dissolving into absolute darkness. He is a man accustomed to running. His entire career as an investigative reporter was built on exposing the darkest corners of human nature until he became the story himself. A string of fabricated sources ruined lives, and an embezzled fortune led him here, fleeing under an assumed name with a briefcase full of bearer bonds tucked securely beneath his seat. Seat 4B, carriage 7, said it was supposed to be a quiet getaway. The carriage is old, lined with dark mahogany and faded velvet, smelling faintly of damp wool and vintage tobacco. Beside him, a single lamp flickers with a rhythmic, hypnotic pulse. The train picks up speed, its metal wheels singing a sharp, metallic screech against the frozen rails as it plunges deeper into the countryside. Julian checks his watch. It is 12:05 a.m. He reaches for his flask, pouring a dark amber liquid down his throat to numb the phantom sounds of the lives he destroyed to get this money. A sudden drop in temperature makes his breath bloom into a white cloud inside the heated carriage. Frost spreads rapidly across the window, crawling like intricate silver spiders over the glass. He shivers, pulling his wool coat tighter around his shoulders. From the far end of the corridor, a heavy rhythmic sound begins. Thump, drag, thump, drag. It is the distinct sound of someone wearing heavy, waterlogged boots moving down the narrow hallway. Julian freezes, his hand tightening around his flask. He listens closely, expecting the polite knock of a ticket inspector offering extra blankets or late-night tea. But the air grows so heavy that every breath feels like inhaling crushed ice. Through the frosted glass of his compartment door, a shadow looms. It rises far higher than any normal man, stretching almost to the arched ceiling of the train corridor. The door glides open without a sound. Standing in the doorway is a towering figure wrapped in an ancient, waterlogged conductor's coat, heavy with the stench of stagnant river mud and old decay. Brass buttons green with corrosion cling to the rotting fabric, and a wide-brimmed cap casts a deep, impenetrable shadow over its face. Where a human face should be, there is only a hollow, swirling darkness save for 2 tiny, piercing pinpricks of pale blue light that lock onto Julian. The creature holds a heavy iron ticket puncher, its metal rusted and sharp, dripping a dark, viscous liquid onto the carpet. Julian scrambles backward, pressing his spine hard against the velvet seat, his heart hammering violently against his ribs. He reaches into his coat pocket, pulling out his valid first-class ticket with trembling fingers, offering it to the giant figure. The conductor does not look at the paper. It does not reach for it. Instead, a sound emerges from the creature's chest, not a spoken voice, but a chorus of distant, weeping voices layered together, echoing as if from the bottom of a deep, dry well. It asks a single, terrifying question that rattles the wood paneling of the compartment. What is your greatest unpaid sin? Julian's tongue feels heavy like lead. He tries to lie, to spout the smooth, practiced evasions that saved him in courtrooms and boardroom meetings. He stammers that he is just a traveler, a harmless tourist going north, an honest man who paid his way. The conductor's hollow face tilts slightly, as if listening to a distant song. The pale blue lights flare into a brilliant, blinding white. Liar, the chorus rasps. The iron puncher clicks, a sharp, a deafening sound that reverberates through Julian's skull like a gunshot. Instantly, the air in the compartment changes. Shadows begin to detach themselves from the corners of the ceiling, crawling down the mahogany walls like thick black oil. Julian watches in sheer horror as the shadows slither toward his legs, wrapping around his ankles with the freezing grip of a dead man's hand. He screams, thrashing wildly, but his movements are sluggish, as if he is trapped underwater. He reaches for his briefcase, the weight of his stolen wealth feeling like an anchor, pulling him down into the floorboards. From the adjacent compartments, Julian hears a series of terrifying sounds. Screams of pure agony echo through the carriage, followed by the wet, sickening sound of tearing fabric and heavy objects collapsing into dust. He hears a woman's voice down the hall pleading for mercy, confessing to something she did years ago, before her voice is abruptly cut short by a wet, hollow crunch. The conductor moves closer, its massive frame filling the entire doorway, stepping into the compartment with a slow, deliberate grace. The floorboards groan under a weight that seems impossibly heavy. The creature reaches out a long, skeletal hand, wrapped in decaying white leather. It doesn't touch Julian's body. It points directly at his chest, right where his guilt resides. Julian's mind floods with memories he worked so hard to bury. He sees the face of his former partner, ruined by the false stories Julian printed just to land a front-page headline. He hears the crying of the family whose savings were wiped out by the scheme he helped cover up. The weight of every lie, every betrayal, and every life he crushed for his own gain turns into a physical pressure, crushing his ribs from the inside out. He realizes then, with sickening clarity, that this is not a train taking him to freedom. Carriage 7 is a court, and seat 4B is the witness stand. The conductor is not a man nor a ghost, but an ancient collector of unpunished debt, roaming the forgotten tracks of the earth to claim those who escaped human justice. Panicking, Julian unzips his briefcase and dumps stacks of $100 bills onto the floor between them, shouting that he can give the conductor everything, that he can pay whatever fine is required. The bills land on the shadow-covered floor and instantly turn to gray, lifeless ash upon touching the dark fluid leaking from the conductor's boots. The chorus of voices speaks again, closer this time, smelling of cold, damp earth and old brass. Gold cannot buy back a stolen life. Words cannot erase a sworn oath. The creature lifts the heavy iron ticket puncher high into the freezing air. The shadow tentacles wrapped around Julian's legs pull hard, dragging his lower body straight into the solid wood floor, which has melted into a deep, pitch-black pool of liquid darkness. Julian claws at the velvet seat covers, his fingernails snapping off as he desperately tries to hold himself above the surface. He screams out his true name, finally crying out his real confessions into the freezing air, admitting to every bribe, every lie, and every destruction he caused. He begs for a second chance, promising to give the money back, to turn himself in, to face the police, to do anything as long as he can feel the sun again. But the conductor remains unmoved. The time for confession was during life, before stepping onto the train of the damned. The iron puncher descends with a final, decisive snap, punching a neat, circular hole through the air right above Julian's head. A agonizing cold floods Julian's lungs as the darkness swallows his chest, his neck, and finally his head. His vision turns completely black, filled only with the endless, rhythmic sound of train wheels clacking against metal rails. The physical world vanishes. When the train finally comes to a smooth, silent stop at the end of the line in the grey dawn light, the morning cleaners board carriage 7, The private compartment of seat 4B is wide open and completely silent. The heater is humming gently, warming the cozy space. On seat 4B there is no man, no briefcase, and no money. There is only a single dark coat, folded neatly on the velvet cushion. Covered in a thin dusting of silver frost, and on the floor beneath it lies a single paper ticket, stamped with a clean, circular hole that smells faintly of river mud and old unpunished sins. The high-speed overnight express cuts through the heart of the mountain pass, its dark metal body tearing through the freezing fog like a silent bullet. Inside cabin 4 the air is warm, thick with the scent of stale coffee, old leather upholstery, and the gentle hum of the electric heating unit. Maya pulls her wool blanket higher up her shoulders, shifting uncomfortably on the narrow seat. She is exhausted, her mind hazy from hours of staring at rain-streaked windows as the train rushed across state lines. The compartment is designed for 4 people, but tonight she has been entirely alone, a luxury she welcomed when she boarded at midnight. The rhythmic, hypnotic sway of the carriage lulls her into a light, uneasy slumber, her head resting against the vibration of the double-paned window glass. The world outside is nothing more than a wall of impenetrable blackness, occasionally interrupted by the sudden, violent flash of a trackside, signal light casting red and amber, shadows across the ceiling. She wakes abruptly at 3 a.m., her eyes snapping open as if summoned by an unseen force. The temperature inside the small room has plunged drastically, turning her breath into a thin, ghostly plume of mist. She shivers, rubbing her arms to force circulation back into her frozen limbs. That is when she notices the change. The seat directly across from her, the one that had been vacant for the first 3 hours of the journey, is no longer empty. A woman is sitting there, positioned in the dim shadow cast by the small reading lamp mounted on the panel. The woman is sitting stiffly, her back perfectly straight, facing entirely away from Maya and staring out the pitch-black window into the endless night. Maya blinks, trying to clear the fog of sleep from her brain. She did not hear the sliding door open. She did not hear footsteps nor the rustle of clothing. The train had not made any scheduled stops for over an hour. A strange, creeping dread settles in the pit of Maya's stomach. "Excuse me," Maya says, her voice raspy from disuse, vibrating nervously in the quiet space. The woman does not answer. She does not shift her weight or acknowledge Maya's presence in any way. She remains completely motionless, like a wax figure planted on the velvet seat. Maya leans forward slightly, trying to catch a glimpse of the passenger's profile, but the darkness in the corner of the compartment seems unnaturally dense, absorbing the soft yellow glow of the reading lamp. The train suddenly gives a sharp metallic lurch, the wheels screeching loudly as the engine enters the Great Alpine Tunnel, a massive 3-mile stretch of mountain stone, where all light from the outside world vanishes completely. The glass of the window instantly transforms into a dark, perfect mirror, reflecting everything inside the brightly lit interior of the carriage. Maya looks at the window reflection, and her heart drops into an abyss of pure horror. In the glass reflection, the woman sitting across from her is no longer looking out at the tunnel wall. She has turned her head completely toward Maya. But it is not a stranger's face staring back at her in the glass. It is Maya's own face. The woman possesses the exact same long dark hair, the exact same high cheekbones, the same faint scar above her right eyebrow, and the same pale blue denim jacket Maya is wearing right now. The resemblance is not merely close, it is an absolute terrifying duplicate. Maya feels the blood drain from her face, her pulse hammering wildly against her throat. She pulls her gaze away from the glass reflection to look directly at the actual, physical person sitting across from her in the real world. But in the cabin itself, the woman is still sitting with her back turned, looking straight ahead. A cold sweat breaks out across Maya's skin as the reality of the situation twists into something impossible. She reaches for the sliding glass door of the compartment, desperate to step out into the hallway and find a conductor, or another passenger, or anyone who can anchor her to sanity. But her fingers freeze an inch away from the handle. She cannot move her arm. A sudden heavy paralysis spreads through her nervous system like liquid ice, starting from her fingertips and racing down her spine. She tries to scream, to let out a desperate cry for help, but her jaw is locked shut, her tongue heavy and motionless against the roof of her mouth. Her lungs can only manage shallow, frantic micro-breaths. She is trapped inside her own body, an involuntary spectator to a nightmare unfolding in real time. The lights in the carriage begin to flicker, dying down to a dim red emergency glow as the train penetrates deeper into the air, heart of the mountain. With every flicker of illumination, the entity across from her moves. It does not move fluidly like a human being. Its movements are jagged frame by frame. Jumps like a broken projector. Reel, flicker. The woman's body rotates 45 degrees toward Maya, flicker. Her hands, bearing the exact same silver rings on the fingers, come to rest on her knees. Flicker. Her head snaps up, looking directly into Maya's terrified eyes. The face is indisputably Maya's, but the expression is fundamentally wrong. The eyes are wide, glassy, and completely devoid of human light, staring with an empty, predatory hunger. Then the mouth begins to change. The lips part, stretching slowly outward. The corners of the doppelgänger's mouth pull back further than human. Anatomy should allow, rising up toward her ears in a wide, unnatural, monstrous smile that displays too many pristine white teeth. The skin around her cheeks twists into tight, pale folds. A low, wet sound begins to emanate from the creature's throat, a horrific sound that mimics Maya's own voice, repeating her name over and over again in a distorted, rhythmic whisper that vibrates inside Maya's skull. Maya, Maya, Maya. The air in the compartment grows so cold that frost begins to form on the denim of Maya's jacket, freezing her solid into her seat like an exhibit in a museum. Every time the train wheels hit a seam in the track, plunging the room into a split second of total darkness, the doppelganger advances. Thump, thump. The creature is suddenly sitting right at the edge of her seat, leaning forward until their knees are almost touching. Thump, thump. The creature tilts its head at an impossible 90-degree angle. Its stretched, terrifying smile widening even further until tiny droplets of dark blood bead along the torn corners of its lips. Thump, thump. The creature reaches out its pale hand, its fingers stroking Maya's frozen cheek with a touch that feels like dry, frozen parchment. Maya's mind screams in agony, her brain straining against the invisible bonds holding her muscles hostage. But her flesh remains stone still, her tear-filled eyes wide open, forced to watch her own likeness prepare to erase her. "You have lived your life long enough," the duplicate whispers, the voice blending perfectly with the roar of the wind outside the train. "You are tired. You make so many mistakes. You worry about the future, about money, about love, about survival. Let me take the weight. I will do it better. I will live your life so smoothly that no one will ever notice you were replaced. Your mother won't know. Your friends won't know. They will love me more than they ever loved you." The entity's hand slides down Maya's throat, its cold fingers pressing gently against her beating carotid artery. Maya can feel her consciousness beginning to fray at the edges, her vision dimming into grey static as her sense of self. Her memories, her thoughts, and her identity are slowly sucked out of her body, drawn into the greedy, vacant vessel sitting in front of her. She tries to hold on to her memories, the smell of her childhood home, the sound of her best friend's laugh, the pain of her last heartbreak, but they are being pulled away, like loose threads from an old sweater, flying into the gaping maw of the smiling monster. The duplicate's eyes begin to fill with color and life, sparkled with the stolen essence of Maya's humanity. While Maya's own eyes fade into dull, milky glass, the creature inhales deeply, taking a long, satisfied breath of air, its chest rising and falling with vital energy as it absorbs Maya's physical vitality, leaving behind only a hollow, calcified shell. The train engine roars as it finally bursts out of the far end of the great alpine tunnel, emerging back into the open night air under the faint light of a crescent moon. The bright overhead fluorescent lights of Carriage 4 hum back to life with a loud pop, flooding the compartment with harsh, clinical white light. The unnatural paralysis vanishes, But it is far too late. Maya tries to stand, but her body does not respond. She is completely encased in an unseen, rigid rigidity turned into a frozen, unmoving statue anchored forever to the velvet seat cushion. She cannot blink. She cannot breathe. She is entirely conscious, trapped inside a lifeless, inert cage of her own former skin, unable to make a single sound. Across from her, the duplicate stands up smoothly. She stretches her arms, rolling her shoulders with fluid, perfect grace. Testing out her new physical form, she smooths down the creases of her pale blue denim jacket and adjusts the silver rings on her fingers. She steps toward the small mirror mounted next to the compartment door, checking her hair, turning her head side to side, and practicing a soft, warm, completely convincing human smile. She looks utterly normal, vibrant, and alive, the picture of a young woman traveling home on a late-night train. The duplicate turns back to look at the frozen husk sitting in the seat. She reaches down, picks up Maya's leather handbag from the floor, and slings it casually over her shoulder. She unzips the wallet, checking the driver's license and credit cards inside, nodding with quiet satisfaction. Stepping closer to the frozen body, the duplicate leans down and whispers softly into the ear of the statue. "That used to be Maya. Thank you for the life," she says with a gentle, terrifying warmth. "I'll take good care of it." The train begins to slow down, its brakes squealing as it approaches the brightly lit platform of the next city starlight station. The automated intercom chime echoes through the carriage, announcing the arrival. The duplicate slides the compartment door open with a crisp, easy motion, stepping out into the hallway among the other sleepy passengers gathering their luggage. She steps off the train onto the platform, blending seamlessly into the crowd of morning commuters, walking out into the world as Maya, leaving behind a silent, empty shell in cabin 4 that will sit in the dark forever, waiting for a destination that will never arrive.